Welcome to Chatting with the Experts, which is a podcast for immigrant women like me who have immigrated to North America, Europe, the United Kingdom, or even Australia. In this podcast, we talk about things that matter to us as immigrant women. We talk about our triumphs, but we also talk about the times that we've struggled. And today is no exception. My guest today is the beautiful Marietta Carter-Narcisse, and she's originally from Barbados. I want to describe her as a makeup entrepreneur, but I know she's more than that. So I will let her describe or give a better description of who she is and why she's here. So welcome to Chatting with the Expert, Marietta. Thanks for saying yes.
Thank you so much for having me, Paula. What am I? A beautypreneur. I am like a 30 plus year veteran celebrity makeup artist, department head makeup artist for film and television. That's kind of where my career has been built. I am a international global educator. So I've taught makeup in several parts of the world. And I teach the business of film and television makeup, which is very different than when you think about makeup. I'm not dealing with the consumer. The makeup that I do is makeup that is generated from a script. So I am a storyteller, a filmmaker. I tell pretty much the evolution of my characters through makeup. That's really what I do. And
Wow,
I teach.
that's interesting.
Yeah, because the makeup it's scripted. It's character development. So, and the biggest thing that people don't understand is when you do makeup for film and television, and I want to say scripted film and television, very specific, very different than unscripted. Unscripted, you're doing the look of the day, the look of the moment, the look of the trends. Whereas what I do is not trendy. What I do is the evolution of the character. So it has to look, a lot of times you wake up in the morning, you're not wearing any makeup. It cannot look like somebody came in at 3:00 in the morning when you get up to go to work, get ready for work or something, that somebody came in and did your makeup. The character's doing the makeup themselves. So a lot of people don't realize that. It's not about the makeup being done by somebody. It's about when Marietta gets up to go to work in the morning, or when Paula gets up to go to work in the morning, Paula gets up, brush her teeth, showers, whatever, and she goes in the mirror and she does boom, 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 and she's done. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm doing. I'm in your head. So now I'm in the character's head doing the makeup as that person.
Got you. That's interesting. Wait, let's go back to the beginning. You're from Barbados. So we need to know, how did you even get into this? This is so interesting. Let's talk about how you came here and how you evolved into this.
How did I get into this? And people ask me that question all the time. It's not that that's the path that I started off being. Okay. I arrived in America, Brooklyn, New York, JFK Airport to be specific, January 2nd. Yeah, January 2nd, 1971.
Why?
Barbados.
January.
Yeah. I don't know what my father was thinking. Or maybe he wasn't even thinking. It was just a matter of getting the kids and his wife here to America. But it was my mom, my 4 brothers, one of my dad's younger brothers, and it was 7 of us, right? 7 of us.
Yeah.
Never traveled, never got on a plane, never got outside that 166 square miles of the rock called Barbados. So traveling in the middle of the winter to a place we only heard of, because for us, Barbados was the world. Nothing existed outside of Barbados. We just knew that.
Of course.
Ta, as we call my father, just lived far away up in a place called New York, in America. So my mom got us winter coats and the whole 9 yards, and we packed everything we could in suitcases and, closed up the house and moved to America. That Pan Am flight that left, Pan Am, remember Pan Am? Left 4 p.m.
I remember Pan Am.
Yep, 4:30, nonstop to JFK, New York, from Sewell International. It wasn't Grant Adams Airport yet, from Sewell International Airport. Landed in JFK probably like 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, because I think the flight was delayed, actually. I have to check my notes because I have it all written down. Yeah, I have it all written down. There was no jetway. You had to walk on the tarmac.
No, tell me that again.
There was
no jetway in January?
There was no jetway yet. Jetways weren't around yet. There was no jetway. So when that plane door opened up and Mother Nature came in, we all froze because we'd never experienced anything like that. It was colder than opening up the refrigerator.
Of
You know,
course. Especially you had never traveled, so you weren't even anticipating that.
we had no clue, no concept of what to look for, to feel, nothing. We were young, you know. I mean, my oldest brother was what? I was 4 months short of my 13th birthday, so my oldest brother was probably 15. It was torture. And, you know, you could tell that we were arriving as permanent residents because every permanent resident back then had the big manila envelope with the chest x-ray because they had a U.S. embassy in Barbados, so we collected our green cards before we left Barbados.
Got
Yeah, we
you.
collected our green. So my dad, you know, he filed for us and the whole 9 yards. So we all came with our green cards one time. My mom had the big stack of manila envelopes with the chest x-rays for all of us. And I think it was like 10 suitcases and, you know, everything we own pretty much were in those suitcases, whatever we could bring. And that was it. That's our life. Migrating, you know, we're immigrants migrating to the great big way in America, you know, to collect the money that grows on the trees, to start a
Of
new life,
course.
to start a new life. So my dad closed escrow on the house the night before we arrived
What?
because he did not want to bring us here and make us latchkey kids. And coming from our own home in Barbados, you know, we're coming from a
Mm-hmm.
home in Barbados with our nanny and
Mm-hmm.
housekeeper to Brooklyn, New
Right.
York. So he closed escrow and we moved to the East Flatbush section of Brooklyn. And
Okay.
as we were moving in, all the white folks were moving out to Long Island. Um, you know, and that's where we moved to and settled there. And it's only my parents lived there until 2011, December, when we moved them down here to my home in Florida. But so
Wow.
all that time they lived in the house. When we moved there, you know, my dad bought the house and agreed to keep the tenants until their lease was up, which was a year. After the year, they were gone and we occupied the entire house. So there was a lot of space, you know, we had a lot of space. And that made a tremendous difference in our lives because we had the freedom and flexibility to utilize from the first floor to the second floor in the basement. So we weren't choked up together. It was, you know, a lot more freedom and flexibility than most people had.
Yeah.
And my dad brought our nanny at the time here. He brought her to the States to help get a little bit more acclimated and stuff. And she stayed with us about 6 months, I think.
Only 6 months?
Yeah, she stayed with us about 6 months. It was a big adjustment, you know, it was a big adjustment. And then, of course, getting into schools, and we knew nothing about the school system or anything. And, you know, my dad I don't think he really investigated the school systems the way he should have, you know. That's another story for another time. You know, you come in, you know, for every West Indian family, if you're not a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a teacher, you know, a profession, what they consider the old professions, you're really not
Yes.
making a living. You know, the arts don't give you a living. So I was in school on the track of being a pre-med.
You're a good child. You're
Yeah,
going along the right path.
yeah,
Doctor, or
eh,
lawyer, accounting,
eh,
engineering, those things.
yeah.
Okay.
I was a pre-med student and my whole mind was science track. At the time, I didn't understand that both sides of my brain worked. I did not understand what that meant. All I know is I go to school and I come home and I sit on the sewing machine because I didn't realize at
Sewing
the
machine.
time that I was giving myself a creative outlet. And that's one of the things that you realize later on in life, that as much as I was science oriented, science and math oriented, I also was exceptionally creative. So that was my outlet, but I didn't know that at the time. There are a lot of things I learned after the fact.
All right. So, okay, you said something. So you come home from school, okay, you say science-based subjects you're doing in school, and you go to the sewing machine to sew
To
or
sew,
to, oh, okay,
to
got you now.
sew,
I
to
wasn't
sew,
clear on
no,
the
to
sewing
sew,
machine
yeah,
part.
because,
Okay.
and I should have prefaced that better, but pretty much when I arrived here, my dad said, I was the only girl
Oh, you're the only
from my
girl.
mom, yeah, and I have four brothers,
Okay.
and I have a sister from my dad. So
Okay.
pretty much he said, you want clothes, you make them.
Okay. Right.
That was the end of
Because
the
in the
discussion.
Caribbean, right, in the Caribbean in those days, except someone was sending clothes from abroad, you had to make your
Right.
clothes.
My mom was an amazing seamstress. I come from a line of
Mm-hmm.
people who sew. My mom, my grandmother, who I never knew, my great grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
my great grandparents had a haberdashery. So they imported fine fabrics from
Okay.
abroad, and then people would pick out, and then they would make them. So my mom
Okay.
comes from that
Okay.
line. Her cousins, all of them, they tailor, they do all of that. But I knew none of that at the time. My dad just said, you want clothes, you make them. So it was like,
So you
okay.
got the sewing machine.
So yeah, sewing machines were endless in our house. So once those tenants were gone from the house, we turned the upstairs kitchen into a sewing room.
Oh, okay.
So
But you had the basement. You said you had like 3 or 4 stories or levels.
it's three.
So why the kitchen? Is
The upstairs, that's where the kids were. My parents moved downstairs, and on the upstairs
oh,
where the kids were, because upstairs had 4 bedrooms. We turned up there, and all the cooking was downstairs. So we turned up there where the kids were into a sewing room. So my youngest brother and I were sewing up there. We had about 3 or 4 sewing machines, and
okay,
and,
gotcha.
and lots of fabric. My dad would never object to going to the store and getting fabric. He objected going to the store to buy clothes, but going to the store to buy fabric, we piled it up to the ceiling.
So he probably saw a creative streak in you and your.
I don't
You
think
say
he
your
saw. I
brothers are
don't think
sewing
it
as
was
well.
that deep with him. No, no, no. And no, he wasn't looking for any of that. He just said, "You want clothes, you make them." So I would go to school and come home, and I would tell my friends at school, "Look in the magazine. I'm gonna wear that to school tomorrow." And I go home and sew it after I finish my homework, and sew it up and wear it to school next day. I don't
You
think I
must have been
ever.
popular.
I don't think I ever duplicated my outfits in high school. I think
Wow.
I made from age 12 to 24. I made everything I wore.
Wow. That is creativity to the tilt or the hilt.
I made wedding dresses. I made love bridal dresses, beaded them, everything.
Wow. So this was something you were interested in.
But I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I just did it. I was sewing, and all through college, I sewed, and I had a scholarship because I was a pre-med student. So I had a scholarship to work in Brooklyn Jewish Hospital for 9 weeks. And I worked in 2 departments. I worked in the lab doing what they call lupus preps, spinning the blood and stuff, doing lupus preps.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked in home health. The lady in home health was from the Caribbean. She's from Grenada, actually.
She's from Grenada.
She was from Grenada. And she said,
Wow.
every day you come in here, and I don't understand, you always look so polished. She said, where do you get all these clothes from? I said, I make them. She said, you do what? And my nails were always done. She said, you make them? I said, yeah. She said, well, I got 2 daughters at home. Can you teach them how to sew? Now, I hadn't been teaching anybody how to sew. I was just sewing for me and sewing for clients.
Right.
You know, I had about 16 clients I used to sew for all the time. And
Oh, so you were sewing commercial. I mean, when I say commercially, you had actually started a small business
but I didn't
without
know.
thinking about it.
I didn't know. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I didn't even know the word. I had no idea what that word was. I didn't know. I just did it. People say, "Oh, I like what you're wearing. I make it from," and they pay me. I
What?
didn't think about it. And I did it. It was it wasn't something I thought about. I just did it. I didn't think about entrepreneur. I didn't think about business. I just did it. Oh, sure, I can make you half a dozen pair of pants. No big deal. Took me no time.
Right.
And it was a no-brainer for me. And she said, but I got 2 daughters. Can you teach them? So then I started teaching them sewing lessons. I was teaching them how to make clothes. And I was like,
You had to kind of come up with a plan, like, okay, now get the machine. The next thing you're gonna do is show them how to thread the machine
the whole bit,
and all of that.
all of that. How to hem, how to
Wow.
darn, all of that. But
Did you enjoy it?
yes, but it was a no-brainer. I never thought about it. I just did it. It was automatic.
Wow.
So I was teaching, but not knowing what I was doing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because it was just automatic. It was not something, I had this deep plan about, or, oh, yes, this is none of the above. It was just something that I did.
So right now, so you're in the Brooklyn Jewish Hospital?
Brooklyn Jewish Hospital,
Yeah, the Brooklyn Jewish Hospital. And you have started, I mean, so you're on the pre-med track, but now you're beginning to teach these young girls or teenage girls probably how to sew. And you still don't realize, there's a creative side of me and there's a business side to my creativity.
None of it.
So let's see. So,
No, but when nobody points that out to you, you don't know. And the same token, in school, I didn't realize that my focus could have gone in 1 or 2 directions. Pre-med, but majoring in chemistry. If I had known about interning in a place like Estee Lauder, the labs, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Those things were so well guarded that I knew nothing about interning in a lab or working in a lab where I could foster the skills of that creativity, but yet with the science, combine the two. So I didn't know anything about that. And I didn't know anything about Fashion Institute. Because it's not like you can Google stuff back then. You had to write away, or somebody tell you about it, somebody introduce you to it. So, and with my parents not being, a lot of the things that happens, I think with island parents, if they're not exposed, they're stifled and they're afraid to come out that comfort zone to seek out and to learn. So they only
Because it's
learn,
scary.
yes, they only know what is within the confines of whoever they venture out with, or, and
Yes.
it's a scary thought. It was very scary for my mom to step outside of what she
Yes. I
knew.
can see. Yep.
And even though my dad had lived in America, he was a typical man. I was like, they go to the local schools, they do this, they do that. He didn't think about things like that. What's there to think about?
Mm-hmm.
The school is there, you go to it.
Okay. And you said he was a dentist,
A dental technician.
a dental technician. Okay. So still thinking, kind of
Yeah.
narrow thinking,
But he had his own business.
Okay.
He had his own business.
He had his own
My
business.
dad was an
Okay.
entrepreneur. He had his own business.
So it ran in the family, it ran in your blood. You had the entrepreneurial blood in you, you had the creative blood in you, and you still didn't recognize it, or it wasn't recognized.
It wasn't recognized.
Wow.
I think more so for my mom, she understood what we were doing, but again, she was scared. She didn't explore. So by not exploring, you limit to just what's right there within your vision,
Yes.
And my younger brother and I both should have probably gone to Fashion Institute of Technology.
Yes. Well, who would have thought about that then? We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
So now, in hindsight, right?
Yeah, that's where we should have gone. Yeah. If you don't ask the right question, you can't ever get the right answer.
True. So, in continuation of asking the right question, so now you're at that point, you're teaching these girls, and what happens? You decide, I'm not doing pre med. These girls love it, or what's happening?
No, I was so pre-med.
Really?
Yes, of course. I didn't
Okay.
realize that you can make money off of a hobby. It was looked at as a hobby. So I just continued doing what I was doing. I was, I went all the way to the door of Jersey Medical School. I was on the waiting list at Jersey
Wow.
Medical School.
And then what happened?
Boom. That's not where I want to be. After working in the hospital, I realized that's not where I want to be. And I graduated. I couldn't
Wow.
wait to get out of LIU. I went to LIU, Long Island University, on a full scholarship.
Wow.
It's not like I was dumb. I went on a full scholarship. I was very involved in the community, the West Indian community. So I entered beauty pageants. I mean, I even got pictures of me and Bob Marley. I entered beauty pageants.
What?
Yes. All of the above. And I was very involved, very active. I used to model in a lot of community stuff. I mean, I did a lot of stuff. I was very, very involved. My younger brother and I used to sew clothes for fashion shows and stuff. I mean, we did a lot of stuff. And I won a trip to Barbados in one of the competitions I was in. And I went home and I took a book with me called What Color is Your Parachute? And
What, sorry?
What Color is Your Parachute?
Okay. Ooh.
And
Okay.
I
Tell
read
us.
that book. I studied that book. And I came back to America and I enrolled in beauty school.
Wow. So that book helped change or shape you into understanding, okay, I need to do something different. Because even though you said you realized that, this is not for me, but it seems like in listening to you, it's the book that made you think outside the box.
Yeah. You don't get that push. It's like, how are you going to survive? It's like the only way to make it is by doing. And every single, I mean, once I graduated at LIU, I worked at New York Life Insurance Company because I had to get a job, And
pay your bills.
I had no bills. I worked. I lived at home.
Oh, you were living at home?
Of course, I had no bills. I went to LIU, downtown Brooklyn. I got on the train. My dad didn't want me to go away because he said, you're new, you're foreign, blah, 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 whatever. Long story. That's another story. And you get in the train, you get off at Nevin Street, and you go to LIU. Because I got into Fordham, but I would needed to live on campus. He wouldn't let me live on campus. So
that is precious.
and then LIU was a full scholarship. It was a private school, but a full scholarship. So I paid nothing. And I after I started to work at New York Life Insurance Company, I started as a correspondent, and then I became an underwriter. So I underwrote health and life.
Wow.
And I thought, I must be crazy. When I went home to Barbados and I read that book, Richard Bowles, it's by Richard Bowles, I think. And everything I did, all the exercises in the book kept bringing me back to the same thing. Creativity, beauty, everything other than pre-med or pursuing medicals, again, because I didn't understand that both sides of my brain worked. So I applied to beauty school. I enrolled. I didn't tell anybody other than my mother. And I finished beauty school. My goal was, I set a goal for myself, 7 months, complete, take the state board, the whole bit. If I didn't pass state board on the first try, that was it. I'm done. Did all of that. And my clients followed me right out of the beauty school to my home.
Wow.
So because my brothers Most of my brothers had left home by then. So I had the whole upstairs pretty much. And I started doing clients upstairs, unbeknownst to my father. He had no clue because he was never home.
When you said doing clients, what were you
Doing
doing?
hair.
Yeah,
I
okay.
was doing the hair because in beauty school you don't really learn much makeup. I was doing the hair and then had a clientele from off my block. So they would come at night and I set the hair. They'd come in the morning before they went to work. I comb out the hair. So I had a serious clientele I was building with the hopes that I would then open up my own place until my dad discovered I was running a beauty shop out of his house.
Out of his house, right. So what did he say?
That didn't go very well. That's another story. I had to prove myself. And we got into a knockdown drag out. But it just really solidified what I needed to do for me. Then I broke up with the boyfriend I had. And my whole beauty life and everything that I was thinking and blah, 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 it all changed just like that. And I thought, what am I going to do? So I had to redirect my thinking. And I was freelancing. I was also, in addition to doing the hair, I was freelancing for Revlon at the time because I thought that would give me an opportunity to meet people. So I was freelancing at King's Plaza. And I met a young lady who was also freelancing, a Black American. And we started, one thing led to another. And she said, oh my God, I need a touch up. And, when she found out I did hair, she said, oh, I need my relaxer needs touching up, right? So I told her, oh, you can come over and I'll do it. So she came over to the house. The day she came over to the house happened to be the day that my younger brother was passing through New York because he had moved to California and he was working with the Commodores, the recording group, the Commodores.
The recording group, the Commodores.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
those are my people from way back.
Yes. So they were passing through on his way back to California. They were coming from Bermuda.
Okay. Oh, Bermuda. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about that today.
That's so funny. And whenever he had an opportunity to come to New York to see my mom and dad, he would. So they were swinging through. So here it is. They came into the house and my client that I just met like a couple of days before is under the hairdryer. So one of them started playing the piano. I had a piano. My parents had given me a piano because I used to play the piano. And this one of the singers that's with them, one of the background singers. So they started a whole jam session in our living room upstairs. And she's under the dryer, my client. And she's hearing this music. Now, I tell you, I just met her, so I know nothing about her background. So all of a sudden, she jumps from under the dryer and she comes out and she starts to join them singing. I had no idea this woman could even sing.
What?
And talking to her, I find out that not only could she sing, her degree is in music.
Oh, my word. Okay, now this is getting interesting. Okay.
So they're having a whole jam session. She's in rollers and they're having a whole jam session in my living room in Brooklyn, New York. Cut to a couple of days later when I go into the store and I see her, I said, what are you doing next week? She said, well, nothing. I said, do you want to move to Europe with me indefinitely? She said, move to Europe?
You said that to her?
Yeah. She said, move to Europe. She said, I'd love to, but I don't have any money. I said, well, I don't have any either. How are we going to do it? She convinced her mother to take out a loan from the credit union. The mother worked at Bellevue Hospital. She convinced her to take out a loan so she could buy a ticket to accompany me on
going to Europe.
So we bought
with no money.
With no money. So, but I had this really great client who traveled a lot. So she took me down to her travel agent, and we bought 2 open tickets for a year on an Air France Vacances flight. That's a special vacation flight thing that they have. But the tickets were open for a whole year, and we coordinated our trip because Commodores were coming back into New York, and we coordinated our trip to tag along with my younger brother on the Commodore's flight. So we left New York January on an open ticket to Paris and traveled all through Europe with the Commodores.
Wow. But your brother in tag.
Yep. And that's where I got introduced to a whole different world. I saw some of the biggest entertainers in the world. Aretha Franklin, Paul Williams, John-Luc Ponty, Jeffrey Osborne. They were all Melissa Manchester. They were huge. They were attending a festival in the south of France. So we were in the south of France. I went all through Europe with Commodores. It was just the biggest. I met Isaac Hayes. I met the one that lived with Bobby Short, that lived with Gloria Vanderbilt. I mean, Raymond St. John. I mean, it was, I can't even begin to tell you how it changed my life. So
I'm just thinking, wow, these are names because, I mean, you're probably like, much older than me. And those are the names of, The celebrities of our days.
Exactly.
Isaac
Well,
Hayes,
that's who they
the
were. They were the biggest celebrities at
Commodores.
the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it opened me up to a whole new world that I never even anticipated that I was going to be a part of. And
Mm-hmm.
I bought a one-way ticket from Frankfurt, Germany to Los Angeles.
Hmm.
And that's how I ended up in LA. I followed my younger brother.
That's how.
And then through him, I met Natalie Cole,
Natalie Cole,
the late Natalie
yes.
Cole. So through him,
Mm-hmm.
and my girlfriend was with me too. So she
Oh, so
came.
she stayed with you throughout all of this.
I mean, I was now getting to know her. So we arrived in LA and I met Natalie like a few months after. Yeah, I met Natalie. No, the following year I met Natalie, I think. And because she'd already known my brother through Commodores,
Mm-hmm.
it was a no-brainer in meeting her because I went to the airport to take my
Mm-hmm.
brother. And when she was at the airport, she brought one of the other Commodores to the airport and we met and she said, well, you getting on the flight. That's when you could walk all the way up to the plane door back then.
Oh, there was no this security.
No, nothing like that. And I said, well, no, I'm
Yeah.
going to leave. I'm just dropping him off. She said, oh, you want to walk out the airport with me? And I'm like, I'm walking out the airport with Natalie Cole? Okay, let me compose
Wow.
myself. I'm having complete internal dialogue with myself. And finally, I got up enough nerve to say, Miss Cole, if you ever need, she said, call me Natalie. I said, okay, Natalie. I said, if you ever need anybody to do hair, makeup, and wardrobe, I'm available. She said,
Wow.
as a matter of fact, I'm putting my tour together and I'm probably going to need someone. I learned Confucius
Wow.
said, if you can do what you say you can do, it's not boasting. And I thought, this is my long shot moment. I don't think I'll ever get another opportunity like this. So what do I have to lose? And I gave her my number and a little piece of paper she gave me. I didn't have a pen or paper. A little piece of paper. 3 days later, her manager called and said, Natalie would like you to come down and meet her after rehearsal. And I went down to where she was rehearsing. She introduced me to the band. And then from there, we went to her studio where she stored her wardrobe. And we went to a storage unit of, God knows, probably 1,000 gowns. I picked out 25 and they needed altering. They needed rebeading because, she'd put on weight and I needed to open up all those gowns and sew them and then rebead them. And
So did she know you could do that? Or that was an additional skill you were bringing?
well, she didn't know what extent I could do until
Okay,
I
okay,
did
okay.
it all. And she was blown away because she was shocked at how I was able to do it. She was impressed by my work and the end result. And I rearranged, I cleaned out all the trunks that she stores, repacked all her stuff, got her all new stuff. She was so blown away by my organizational skills that she said to her manager, Dan, she said, she got to go with me. A couple of days later, I was on a flight to Hawaii with Natalie.
Look at
And
that.
that's how my career started off.
Look at that. Look at that. And it all started with the fact, well, kind of in my mind, listening to your story, started with the fact that when you got to the States and you wanted clothes, your dad said, I'm not buying clothes. You're going to learn to sew.
Mm-hmm.
And you started that sewing and it was innate. Every day, from what I'm hearing, you went to school with a brand new outfit and, you'd look at magazines and say, tomorrow I'm going to wear that. And sure enough, you did. You did your homework. You're still doing very well in school. And then you got to Brooklyn Jewish Hospital and you said somebody from Grenada. Was she in the lab? One
She
of the
no, she was in
lab.
she was the head of the home health department in the hospital.
Okay, the home health department. And she's like, how come you always look so good? And you say, well, I just do. And I make my clothes myself. And that opened up a whole new world for you. Wow.
Something it's not like I had it written down that this is what I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
as far as sewing and stuff. It was so far off my radar as a profession.
Mm-hmm.
Makeup artistry
Wow.
here, none of that stuff. Because, you grew up thinking,
I need to have money. I need to have a profession I can fall back on. This is a hobby.
yes.
And now let's see, this is almost like 5 years later, and your hobby has become a sought after skill. And not just I'm not minimizing non-celebrities, but it's not just for people in your neighborhood. These are big names, at least in our days, that still are. These are names that people know worldwide. All right, so I'm going to stop here just for a little while. This is so interesting. We have to have two parts. So now you realize that, or you had realized for a little while that this skill or this hobby is more than a hobby. It's something that can earn you money and you're meeting amazing people And now you're part of the late Natalie Cole. I used to love her music. I still do. I guess wardrobe artist team.
No,
And
it
you
was
are
just me. I was the first woman to go
just
out.
you.
It was just me. I was
What?
the first woman to go back out on the road with Natalie. Natalie's gone to, several bouts of rehab and stuff, and they wanted somebody who didn't drink,
Yes.
who didn't smoke, who didn't do drugs or anything. And because she already knew
And you
my
did.
brother, she'd met him with the Commodores, it was a
Mm-hmm.
comfortable arrangement to have somebody like myself who didn't have a background or drugs or none of that stuff, and I could be with her. So I became her personal confidant, her assistant, her wardrobe, her hair, her makeup, everything. I ended up doing all of that for her and coordinating and dressing her band and her.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
A
All
lot of
right.
work.
So, to you listeners, this is my guest, Marietta Carter-Narcisse, and she's originally from Barbados. She's given us a story, not her story, but she's telling us about her life and how, sometimes skills you learn that you don't think are important can actually change your life. Now we're talking about how she became a companion or a wardrobe
Wardrobe,
confidant to.
wardrobe, makeup, hair, pretty much personal confidant and Natalie. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So go on. So now you're in Hawaii with her.
Yeah.
And
She was opening up for the Commodores.
okay. Was Lionel Richie with them at that
Lionel had just left them not too long after that. My brother was actually with the Commodores when Lionel was still with them. He started with working with the Commodores.
time? Okay.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to travel. You gotta remember, coming from Barbados to New York, the only other traveling I had done was back to Barbados to visit. So now here I am going to Europe,
Mm-hmm.
which opened up a whole different can of worms, and back to the States, and now I'm seeing a whole nother side of the world that, did Hawaii and Canada and a lot of parts of the US with Natalie. Places in the US you heard of, but I didn't know I would be going to.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm going to bring it back. So what's your dad saying to this now? Because, he was shocked initially when he saw, what? My daughter, she's running a business in my house, And in those days it was, this is my house and you do what I say in my house. I'm sure, or maybe not.
Oh, no, no, those are the
My
words.
dad was.
Those are the exact words. You said it just like him. It was a big exploration of finding me, of finding myself.
Mm-hmm.
And with Natalie, as great as it was a lot of work. It was a lot of responsibility. And I still didn't have the internal satisfaction that I was looking for. And I was sitting at the movies one night. It was a day off. As the end credits were rolling on the screen, I had an epiphany. That's what I want to do. I want to do makeup for film and television.
Even though you were already kind of in it, and you were working alongside the Commodores and you're working with Natalie Cole, but you hadn't quite put a name or description to it.
It's a very different kind of makeup. It's a very different world. It's still the entertainment world, but a different avenue. And when I looked at the credit, I came home and I looked through the phone book for makeup schools. And I decided I was going to enroll in a makeup school to learn how to do makeup for film. Because even though I could do makeup, I didn't know anything about makeup for film.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got accepted to makeup school, I spent the next 10 months in school learning how to do makeup for film and television, to do cuts
Wow.
and bruises and burns, read a script, break down a script, all the things that go with film and television, which is very, very, very different from what I was doing. And then I really did a lot of affirmations, and, the school referred me to different people, and then I set my sights, and my career started to build. I started to see what I wanted to see, and I started meeting different people. My best friend, still to this day, I met on the set of a Commodore's video. I was helping my brothers make the clothes for the night shift video. My brother's a custom designer too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so I was helping him make the clothes for the night shift video. And I went on the set to visit him and help him and I met the makeup artist. And she pretty much redirected my life. She was doing the
What
video,
was her name?
Robin Siegel. And we exchanged numbers and stuff. A couple of days later, she called me. She said, I'm doing a Jeffrey Osborne video. And I remember seeing Jeffrey Osborne and meeting Jeffrey Osborne in Europe, like the year before. And so I did 2 Jeffrey Osborne videos, actually. So I started working with her. And then, I started meeting a lot of people through her. And, we did a lot of videos. And then from that led to doing film, to meeting different makeup artists and working, as an additional artist and meeting people who eventually I was on a film set, and I really started to enjoy what I went to school for. And, meeting different people and being true to yourself. And my career started to grow. And on one of the films, I met Clara's Heart. I met Whoopi Goldberg. And Whoopi, pretty much another one who was really instrumental in changing a lot of things for me. I met her on Clara's Heart,
Tell
but
me
I
about
didn't do
that.
Whoopi's makeup on Clara's Heart. We were on the Eastern Shore of Maryland actually shooting. We shot on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. But I didn't do her. I did Kathleen Quinlan's makeup and hair. I was the only Black person on that crew. And, Whoopi recognized that instantly. And we bonded. And then shortly after that, I was on another film called Her Alibi. And Whoopi was on that because her boyfriend at the time was the camera operator. So again, I was the only Black person on that crew. So we hung out together a lot. We would go antiquing and it was great. It was wonderful. And when I got back to LA, I called her to say hi. And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" We got to talking. And she said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I'm doing comic relief. Can you come down and do my hair and makeup?" So I went up to the Hollywood Bowl and did her hair and makeup for comic relief. I did 2 comic reliefs with her, comic relief 3 and 4, I think, with her, and Robin Williams and Billy Crystal. And so I did 2 of those with her. And then I did a few more movies. And then halfway through one movie I was doing, I got a call from her office, from her assistant saying, Whoopi's doing a movie called The Long Walk Home, and she would love for you to come and do her makeup on that. So I went to Alabama and I did her for The Long Walk Home. Before we would finish that movie, she said, "I'm getting ready to start another movie in LA. And I told Paramount Pictures about you, and I would love to do that when we get back there." And that was Ghost. And I did it for Ghost. I was her personal for Ghost, the key on the show. And I did it when she got nominated for the Oscars. And, then I did Baghdad Cafe with her. And I did a lot of photo shoots and, things with her. And to this day, I still consider Whoopi a friend of mine. And she fought for me. Because back then, Black actors didn't really have a say in bringing their own makeup person. So Whoopi fought for me
Yes.
to be a personal for her. And that was huge. That was huge. From there, my career started to build. I went on to do Boys in the Hood from there. John Singleton hired me to do Boys in the Hood. And then from Boys in the Hood, I think I went on and did Malcolm X. And after Malcolm X, I came back to LA and I did The Jacksons and American Dream. And I met Angela Bassett on Boys in the Hood. I did her on Malcolm X and then Jackson's and American Dream. I worked with Angela for about 5 years. And I met Denzel on The Mighty Quinn in Jamaica. So when I did Malcolm X, I'd already known Denzel. I'd already worked with him. And I did Shirley Ralph's makeup. I didn't do Denzel on The Mighty Quinn. I did Shirley Ralph's makeup and hair on The Mighty Quinn. Because in the beginning of my career, I did makeup and hair until I got to Her Alibi, where Her Alibi became a union show. And on that show, I made a choice to no longer be worried about flyaways on the hair, just do makeup. In the union, you have to make a choice. You can't do both. You can only do one or the other. So I chose to do makeup and build my career in makeup as opposed to makeup and hair. I still consider myself a hairdresser, but I don't really do hair. I just keep my license in it.
Okay.
So I went on to build my career from there, from Whoopi and Angela. And then I had my baby. I was doing Dangerous Minds. It was a Michelle Pfeiffer movie. And that's when I found out I was pregnant. And then I continued working, and that was like a 4-month shoot. I had like 2 weeks off that I interviewed for Strange Days, and I just did Angela Bassett for Strange Days. That was an all-night shoot, 4 months and nights, and I was pregnant the whole time. So I was pregnant. I worked my whole pregnancy. I stopped like 2 weeks before my baby was born. And then I went back to work. And I think the first time I went back to work after my baby was born, it was in Living Single. I went to cover for my girlfriend. And then shortly after that, I think my baby was only like 3 months old. I got a phone call. Was he 3 months? Yeah, I was breastfeeding still. I got a phone call. And my girlfriend was in Florida. And she said, "Hey, Carter," because she called me Carter. She said, "Hey, Carter, I need you to get on a plane." This was on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "I need you to get on the plane by Friday and get to Florida. I want you to do Cindy Crawford for me for fair game." I'm like, "I'm breastfeeding. I got a new baby. I have no nanny." So Friday morning, so that means I had to prep, convince my husband. My husband said, "I'll come and I'll take care of the baby." And I was like, I had to shop and pack for 3 months to come to Florida. And
Shop and pack for 3 months with a new baby.
yes, with the new baby. So yeah, that Friday morning I arrived at Florida LAX, Carnival Airlines. I didn't even know Carnival had an airlines. Carnival Airlines. nonstop to Miami, first class. But when we got to the airport, every Hispanic in Los Angeles was at the airport. And I'm like, who's on the flight? Something's going on. So we seated like literally right by the cockpit. So my husband by the window, myself in the aisle seat, and the other aisle, this beautiful Latin woman, beautiful, gorgeous woman, dressed from head to toe, Armani suit, the whole 9 yards. She was striking, hair pulled back in a chignon, beautiful red lips and stuff. I said, I know she's somebody. I just don't know who she is. She played with my baby the entire flight.
Who did she turn out to be?
And I still didn't know who she was. And the pilot, when we landed, he kind of dropped on the runway. And she was like really funny. She was, oh my God, look at this. He opened the cockpit door. She's like, look at this. Her glasses were all crooked and stuff. Cut to 2 days later. My husband said to me, that lady that was sitting next to us, she's on the news. It was Selena. Had no clue who she was. It was Selena. She was on her way. She came into Miami for Calle Ocho.
Oh, no.
She played with my son the entire flight.
Okay.
It was so bizarre. It was the most bizarre thing on the planet.
Hi.
Yep, it was Selena. I had no clue.
Yes.
Had no clue.
Wow. And you had no clue who she was.
I had lost my ability, starstruck was over for me, a long time. So, you know what I mean? So it was like, it was just another celebrity as far as I was concerned. So it didn't matter to me. She was just another human being. And all I knew is she played with the baby the whole flight. I had no clue who she was until we saw her on the news that night.
No, I was going to say, and that's what happened, as you said, because you were with so many celebrities, it's like, okay, this is another one.
Yeah.
But
it didn't even register.
Probably just one that I don't know or who is up and coming or something like that.
So I did Cindy Crawford. I had a chance to do Cindy Crawford. I did a lot of photo shoots with her. She was still with Revlon at the time. She was at MTV at the time. So we did a lot. So even on my days off, I was still working because she worked all the time. So that was an amazing opportunity for me. I came back to LA and my friend Anna Maria Horsford said, I think my buddy would like you to do his makeup. And that was Samuel L. Jackson. And I had met Sam when I was doing Malcolm X because I did his wife in Malcolm X too. So I had already known her. So she said, call Sam's wife. And she said, well, call his agents. And I said, I just want the right to first refusal. So that when he gets a job, give me the opportunity. I don't need you to make my deals. I can make my own deals, but give me the opportunity to work with him. And I did my first movie with Sam, The Great White Hype, because shortly after that, I got a phone call from the production office saying, we got your name and number from Sam's agent, and we'd like you to interview for the job. And that was, I think, the beginning of me learning how to turn my confidence into reality, I guess, to learn how to fight for myself. And I just finished working with Cindy, and I refused to go back in the rate, because you really have to fight for yourself. And he offered me the rate, and I said, I'm not going to work for that rate. When you figure out how you can pay me correctly, you can give me a call. And I left the man's office, the production manager. By the time I got home, he called me and said, we figured out how we could pay you. Because he knew that he would have had to have gone back to Sam's manager and said, well, we can't pay her. And it would have been, why can't you pay her? So that was the beginning of a 3.5-year run with Samuel Jackson, 10 movies with Sam as his personal makeup artist.
Wow. So I'm listening to this and I'm in awe for many reasons. One, that I'm speaking to you. One, that, you're from the Caribbean and you have done so well. And another reason is that as you're just speaking, I can see I'm in awe of the passion. And this is not scripted. This is something that you've done and you've enjoyed doing this. And I know when we first started, you said, but I'm in the business of film and television.
Yeah. Well, I pretty much focus on film and television. Yeah.
And I was wondering, is this something now you've made a business out of and you are training people or you give talks? Is that it? Because, I'm sitting here, we could talk forever because these names you are talking about that you've worked alongside with, these are household names. These are not just people in the neighborhood, as I said, in the community. These are well-known artists, well-known celebrities, well-known entertainers and actresses and actors. So you must have turned this into a business of some sort.
Well, yeah, by then my career was full blown as I developed a name for myself within the industry. So I was working all the time.
But enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's not like you were working and you're like, oh no, another one.
I didn't have time to think about if I was enjoying it or not. It was automatic because I never stopped. When I worked with Sam, I think over the course of 3.5 years, I probably spent maybe 2 months in my own home over 3.5 year period.
Wow.
I was always gone. 6 months in Toronto, 4 months in Mississippi, 4 months up in Northern California, 2.5 months in Louisiana. I mean, I was always gone.
And what was happening with your family? What was happening with your son? Because,
I had a nanny. I had to have a living nanny
okay.
because, Gregoire was with me the whole time when I first traveled all the time. But once he started school, it became very tricky. He started school when I was on the negotiator. And the negotiator, we started off in Chicago, and it kept going over and over and over and over. And we started off in Chicago. So I was in Chicago about a month with the nanny. And then we came back to Los Angeles. And I'll never forget that flight because they chartered. I had never worked like that before. A month in Chicago. And we left just before the cold weather came in. And
Good.
they chartered a plane to bring us back to Los Angeles and literally brought the makeup and hair trailer onto the tarmac so that when the flight landed at Burbank Airport, we had to unload our makeup and hair and load into the trailer. This is when I hit a breaking point with production. I told production, you're going to send 2 limos, one to take my baby and nanny and not going to sit on a tarmac for the next 4 hours while I load myself into a makeup trailer to be ready to work next morning. So you're going to send a car to pick them up and get them home. And you'll send a separate car for me. There's no way, and that was very, very, very difficult because you're flying 3 hours from Chicago and then you have to load all that stuff into a trailer, set it up and be ready to work next morning.
That's tough.
Without missing a beat.
That's tough.
It was very, 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 very tough. I mean, I'd never done anything like that. I'm like, you can't give us a day off to, you know what I mean? And stuff. Literally, the trunks had to go. I mean, they had all the cars because when I traveled with Sam, my deal memo always included a limo. And it was tough. People they see the glamorous end result, but they don't see the back end on what you go through.
Yes.
And it was just a really tough one. It's like,
Yes.
no, I got to get my baby home. So the nanny lived with us. She lived with us for quite a while. And then we started school, and he started school, and I was on the set. My husband had to take me to school. I couldn't even get off because I was doing Sam.
Because you said you were home for only 2 months. That's 36? 36 months. You were home for 2 months. That's 34 months out of the 36. You weren't home. Wow. That's tough. I mean,
And we're,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm working an average of 75 to 90 hours a week. So.
Oh my gosh. People hear the glamour. They don't know the work behind the glamour. They don't know the work behind the finished product. And that's what you were doing.
What people don't understand, when you work in film, it's any 5 days of the week. Any 5 consecutive days of the week is considered a week. So the week can start on Sunday.
Wow.
The week can start on Wednesday.
Wow.
And it's any hour of the 24 hours in a day is your call time to start work. So sometimes I'm going to work I get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go get ready for work. Sometimes I get up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to get ready for work.
Wow.
So
these are things that people don't know.
It's not your, I'm 9 to 5. That went out the window years ago. It's a very different. And when you run the show, it's very different, very, very different. So those were the kind of hours I was keeping. So therefore, sometimes I would leave home in the morning. Greg was asleep. I get back home, he's asleep because the hours that I kept was so difficult. And thank God for an understanding and supportive partner because you can't do it by yourself. This business is not conducive to family life. It just isn't. It's not a family friendly business. It can tear families apart.
You can see I'm lost for words because I'm thinking, and you said something that's very, very important. You had a supportive partner because if he wasn't there, or he was like, okay, I'm done.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I mean, you would have had to have made a very difficult choice because this was something that you did, you enjoyed doing, and you were successful at. But at the same time, you did have a personal life.
And that's why I tried my hardest to make sure that my career was part of my life and not my life because it could consume your life. And whenever I left home, my life stopped until when I got back home to pick it up because everybody else's life continued. Mine stopped where I left it until I got back home. And that was very, very, very difficult to deal with. It was
Wow.
quite challenging. You know, I missed out on a lot of things that my kid did at school initially because I just was not there.
Just one
Mm-mm.
thing, yes. So how old is he now?
He is going to be 28 years November 15th.
Wow. And does he recall any?
He recalls some of it because Gregoire's got pictures with Sharon Stone, with Billy Baldwin, with Dustin Hoffman, with Angela, with Blair. He's got pictures with Sam. He's got pictures with so many people. I mean, his first birthday party, Sandra Bullock was there, you know?
Wow.
So he's not starstruck. But the most important thing was I made a decision. As my career got to a point, I finally decided that I have to switch priorities in my life. And I had to give myself permission to realize it's okay to switch priorities. And I made a conscious decision to not be on the road with Sam anymore because I was now living Samuel L. Jackson's life and no longer my life.
Right. This is 3 years into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I made a conscious effort to change things around so I could be part of my child's life.
Yes.
Because he didn't ask to be born. What is the point of me being in this career? But then all the money that I would have made would have been paying therapy for him.
Right.
And so I made some major changes in my life. And that's one of the things that propelled us to move to Florida so we could raise him. So and I knew I had a very small window to do it in because, you know, when a kid gets a certain age and you move them, there's a lot of resentment because they have their
Right.
friends, they have their own lives. So we knew we either had to move him at 9 before he had so many friends or after high school. And then he would have been in college. So we made a conscious choice to move here. So we moved to Florida in 2004. He was 9 years old.
That makes sense because I was going to say after high school, he's more or less an adult. Or I mean, going off to college, you come back of more or less semi-adult. I
Yeah,
mean, depending on the personality, but I mean, most likely they're not coming back home. So that was a
right.
smart move.
Well, and I didn't want to do it the way we came to this country. Our feelings weren't taken into consideration or anything. We just, you know what I mean?
At all.
And it was a very hard adjustment coming at age 12 to the States. And I didn't want to do that to him. I wanted him to not have to go through what I went through because being teased, being poked, being, you know, ridiculed, all the above. I didn't want him to have to go through any of that. So, and Gregoire was enrolled in a French school. He was enrolled in the Lycée Français de Los Angeles. So pretty much my kid's first language is more French than English. And we wanted to maintain the same French education that he had because it's French immersion education. So in moving to Florida, we specifically sought out a French immersion school. And it happened to be here in Davie, you know, 10 minutes away from the house. And the only other French immersion school was all the way down south in Coral Gables, and that's really far. So we decided up on Davie and stuff. Best decision we ever made. It catapulted our kid into a whole nother dimension. And he ended up he started college at 14.
Wow. You got a
Yeah.
genius there on your hand.
And he graduated with his associates and his high school diploma at 16. And then from there went to Florida State University and graduated at 18 as the youngest ever in the history of Florida State University. And nobody has touched that record yet.
Impressive.
And at 19, graduated from the University of Miami with his master's at 19.
And his master's in languages, you said?
No, he has his master's in higher education with a focus on sports management.
Wow. Impressive. You've done a good job. In spite of, as you said, all those long hours away from him, you did a great job. And I guess, a lot of thought went into it, You did mention that you and your husband had made a decision that you'd move him either at age where he didn't have a lot of friends or after high school. And I think that decision of moving him at 9 was wise, really wise. Wow, that's impressive.
No regret because and he's a good kid. He's a good human being because that was first and foremost. We wanted him to turn out to be a good human being. He's compassionate, very thoughtful, and with moving my parents down here, there's something majestic with the older generation and the younger generation. And he has an amazing relationship with his grandmother because my father's deceased. So my mom is going to be 94 this year. And he has an amazing relationship with her.
Wow.
So no regrets. That's the challenge of being in this kind of lifestyle.
Yes.
He grew up around celebrities. But I did not want him to be affected by Hollywood and not realize that he has to have a real life.
I'm glad that you were able to see behind, the glitz and the glamour, that there's a real life. And do you think you could put it down to the fact that you came from from Barbados, where, it's the real life there? Your formative years were there, where how many celebrities do we have? In those days, America was the land of everything. As you said, money was being picked from the trees. And then you landed in New York, and the reality hit home with, stepping off the plane, the blast of icy, frigid air, and having to live, go to school there and be foreign and be teased at your accents and everything else.
Oh, yeah. And trying to tell people that Barbados is not in Jamaica, They're two separate islands. They're 3.5 hours apart, flying from each other. No, it's not. No, it's not in Jamaica. No. I'm telling you.
And getting there, but who cares? Look, like, okay, right, you're telling me that, but I don't care. I'm not going to go check on the map to see where it is. Yeah.
It was quite interesting growing up, quite interesting. And I got teased all the time. I would sit by myself and eat because I was very shy. I was very, very shy. I would sit in the cafeteria, in the auditorium sometimes and eat by myself because they would poke at me all the time and tormented and tortured all the time. And then my eyes was a huge issue because I have hazel eyes. And they're like, "Are those yours? Where'd you get those from?" It was, then I had a heavy accent. It was just torturous as far as I was concerned.
Oh, these things are what make us sometimes resilient, make us, determined, like, I'm going to get through this too, or I'm going to make something. I mean, yes, it was rough, but because I went through this, I will see how to make a difference in the world or make people more aware of what I've gone through or be able to empathize with others, because that's the whole point of chatting with the expert. I did not like being asked, ma'am, where you from? Or somebody actually, the first time I called to make a doctor's appointment, they asked, do you need an interpreter? And I'm like, I only speak English.
And let me tell you, it's so funny when they tell you things like that. It's like, it's like, and they say, "Oh, somebody said for a foreigner, you speak pretty good English." English is my first language.
Right. That's the only thing. But as we're talking about celebrities and coming back about accent and so, have you ever met Rihanna? And what do they say about her accent?
She has got a rank Bajan accent.
Right. And she doesn't hide it.
I've come very close for her 21st birthday. We happened to be in Barbados and she was there. She was like that, but I've never met her. Never met her. I never had the pleasure of meeting her. That's one of my dreams, is to meet her.
All right.
I've met a lot of people, but I've never met her.
Yeah, because she's also, she's from the Barbados that isn't in Jamaica, right?
Right. Exactly.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, this has been very interesting. But there's something I found out about you. You have been nominated for the Emmys. You didn't talk about that.
You know what? I was never. That is incorrect, and I can't get it changed. So.
Oh, really?
You went on IMDb and you saw that.
Mm-hmm. I saw that. Like, she has not said anything. Is she just being humble?
That's Marie Carter.
Oh, got you.
Listen, I have spent years from the time IMDb came out. They've merged me and Marie Carter together. I've gotten most of it off, but I can't get the Emmy thing off. I was never nominated for an Emmy. Okay. I was nominated for a Guild Award for Whitney, for the TV movie Whitney. So I was nominated for,
Oh, really? I've watched that.
I was nominated for a Guild Award for that. And I got 2 African Movie Academy Awards for Barra Freedom Fighter and for Joseph, which is a movie I produced, Barra Freedom Fighter. I produced Barra Freedom Fighter, and I did the makeup, and I did the wigs for and the costume design.
Impressive.
For that one, yeah.
I did not know about.
Yeah, Barra Freedom Fighter is actually an excellent movie. It talks about Barra the man taking Barbados into independence. It's a very actually, I think it's showing on Amazon. And Joseph,
Okay, I'm gonna look for
yeah,
that.
and Joseph, the movie, we shot it in
Okay.
Jamaica, Barbados, and Ghana, and that's a beautiful movie. And we were playing in AMC theaters. We had a deal in AMC theaters. It was very unusual for a foreign film like that to be in AMC, but and the COVID killed everything. So
Oh
that was a
yes.
whole nother. But
Yeah.
God has blessed me with a really wonderful life, and I'm at the stage now where I focus on teaching to help bridge the gap of those who really want to build a career in film and television. Because a lot of people don't understand what I do. They see the makeup, but they don't understand
Right.
that it's so much more than a powder puff. And my tagline is more than a powder puff and a lipstick, because it's so
Right.
most of what I do as a department head in film and television is not about makeup application. It's about logistics. It's about organization. It's about dealing with budgets. Sometimes I've got a budget of millions and millions and millions of dollars riding on my head. So it's so much more. It's hiring people. It's HR. It's all the above. And there's not a stitch of makeup
Mm-hmm.
involved in that. It's the planning, the operations, It's running a department effectively. It's negotiating deals, all the above.
And that's what people need to be
Yeah,
educated
yeah,
on and be
yeah.
informed on. Yes, it's more than, what did you
More
say?
than a
It's
powder
more than
puff
a
and a
powder
lipstick.
puff and a lipstick. I
Yeah,
love it.
more than
I
a powder
love
puff
it. I
and a
love it.
lipstick.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know.
So all good things have to come to an end. I've been talking to you for over an hour and still interested. There's one fun fact I want you to share about your island, Barbados. And this involves a close relative of yours.
Must be my
Your
grandfather.
grandfather. Yes, yes, yes. You told me that your grandfather is in the Guinness Book of Records
Yeah, he's in
for.
what do they call it? London has a thing where they validate. So he's validated. So he is in, because a lot of people aren't verified, but he's
All
verified
right,
because I
no
had to
problem.
send to them his birth certificate, copies
Okay.
of his dad's birth certificate, grandparents' marriage certificate. I researched all of that, and I had copies of all of that from 1865. His grandparents were married in 1865, and it was an interracial marriage. And we know it was interracial because they did not allow interracial marriages in the church
Ooh.
at that time. They could only be done in the chapel, so it was an interracial marriage. And so I have copies of the marriage
Mm-hmm.
certificates and all of that from 1865, and his father's birth certificate and stuff. It took a lot of research because in Barbados you have in the
Mm-hmm.
archives, anything before 1900 is meticulously documented in the archives. And then after 1900, it's in the registrar's office. So I spent a lot of time in the archives digging through piles and piles of books with meticulous handwriting. It's unbelievable. And tried to backspace all that. So he was born in 1900, February 21st, 22nd, 1900. And he died May 27th, 2013. He was 113 years old when he died.
Wow. Of course, this was recorded, but in talking with you, you mentioned how he didn't have any diminished cognitive skills. He was a farmer, if I remember
He was a
correctly,
farmer and an engineer. Yeah, he was an
and
engineer
an engineer.
at the sugar factory. Yeah, and he was a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And at 105, he finally stopped farming because yeah, he was so frustrated because somebody stole
Imagine
500
that.
pounds of carrots from him, and it just made him just so frustrated. At 107, he had cataract surgery to remove both cataracts because he said to my mom. My mom is the oldest girl, and he said to my mom, I just want to be able to read the Bible myself. And he did extremely well with that cataract surgery, extremely well. Up until we celebrated every year after he turned 100, we celebrated his birthday. So we would always go down. No matter what we were doing, all the kids, grandkids, we all flew down, and great grands to Barbados to celebrate his birthday. From 100 until 113. We celebrated the 113th birthday also.
Wow. Wow. So it must have been if he was a storyteller or he liked to talk about, the past, it must have been amazing, because he's seen things from, let's say, at least the age of recognition, about the age of 6, if you could really recollect from there till 2013. He's seen the world change big time.
He saw the bird flu, which is
Wow.
the plane. But you know what? Granddaddy could tell you what he had for breakfast the first time. He just his memory was just
Wow.
beyond anything you've ever. My mother's like that. a couple of months ago, my mother said, "Oh, today makes 85 years old. My mother died." I'm like, "How did you remember that?"
Wow.
My mother has a memory
Wow,
that
that's
is out
impressive.
of this world. Absolute amazing memory. And so does my
Wow, that's
grandfather's oldest
impressive.
nephew. He's 100, and he still
Wow.
drives.
That's very
He still
impressive.
drives.
Wow. Impressive. Impressive. Well, girl, we could talk forever. We could probably do another podcast, a third or a fourth, because your material is so interesting. And so I'm going to just wrap up here and say to my amazing listeners, you have heard from Marietta Carter-Narcisse. Isn't she one amazing woman? If you have a story similar to her, well, who can have a story similar to her? She's unique. Please reach out to me on my website, which is www.chattingwiththeexperts.com/contact us, and drop me a line. I would love to have you come on, especially if you're a daughter of an immigrant woman or an immigrant woman herself from Africa or the Caribbean who has found herself in Europe, North America, the UK, or Australia. Please join me in celebrating these women because their stories are worthwhile listening to. Thank you again, Marietta. Thank you for saying yes. I said so at the beginning and I'm saying so again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I really, sometimes you do these things and then you go, "Oh my God, I forgot all about that." Wow, you just made me think about things that I haven't thought about for a while.
It's always the case.
So thank you for having me.